Hello everyone, welcome to the Buzz the Prey Manga. Today we continue the latest Global Freeze chapter, rewritten and edited by me in English for a smooth reading experience. All visuals and story flow are personally edited to give you the best manga style storytelling. Support the original creator by checking the official manga. So let's dive right into the today's chapter.
Chapter 2864 Truly Difficult to Kill. Zhang Yi's expression did not relax, because the radar soon transmitted intelligence. Those desolate puppets that had been blasted away by Shunfeng were actually chasing after them from behind. As the electronic telescope zoomed in, Zhang Yi witnessed an utterly absurd scene. Their bodies underwent another transformation. Their muscles stretched out, and their bones began to flatten, making them resemble kites, rapidly approaching each other by using the wake of the dreamer's flight. "I think we're really in trouble," Zhang Yi said, taking a deep breath. This kind of being, which is indestructible and possesses infinite evolutionary potential, will become a mutated individual that completely counters the ability of the enemy if the time is delayed. At that time, they would probably all be at a disadvantage. Boom, boom, boom. In the distant universe, bursts of fire shot into the sky. On the Wanzhou communication channel, cries for help and angry curses could be heard incessantly. Several warships were destroyed. A small number of aliens on board escape boats escaped, attempting to detonate the entire warship and use the powerful reactor energy to kill the alien puppets. Representatives from those ethnic groups stated in a communication channel, "We detonated all the energy reactors on the spaceship. The explosive yield is enough to destroy a continent. Even a Black Knight-level Inhuman would be severely injured if he didn't escape from the center of the explosion. I don't believe these guys' bodies are that strong." Everyone remained silent, quietly awaiting the outcome. They tried many methods, but failed to kill a single wild puppet. Now all they need is a beginning. Once a wild puppet is killed, they can use that as a weakness to find an opening. Zhang Yi's brows furrowed deeper and deeper. From the words of the Snake Shadow clan representative, he only heard anger and hatred, but these people overlooked one thing from beginning to end. They only regarded the wild puppet as an experimental subject of an advanced civilization, but they never thought that for the Starry Sky clan, who were once close to gods, even a failed product could threaten all races in the present day. Although we are all human beings who have existed in history, we are not on the same level as each other. The gap between a god-level civilization and an ordinary civilization is greater than that between a human and an ant. As if to verify Zhang Yi's guess, after the spaceships that had been completely detonated were burning fiercely, one burning monster after another suddenly emerged from the flames. The bodies of those wild puppets grew even larger, their bodies engulfed in raging flames. After the flames died down and the oxygen was depleted, their charred, black bodies were revealed. Cracks appeared on their charcoal-like bodies, revealing a bright red substance inside, resembling magma. They didn't die. Instead, they adapted to the horrific explosion. Zhang Yi gasped, "Are these guys really unkillable?" The allied forces of all races were also deeply shocked by this scene, and at this moment, some of them finally began to feel fear. What the hell is this? There's no way anything truly unkillable could exist in this world. Upon hearing those words, Zhang Yi suddenly thought of something, and his gaze turned gloomy. The Star Clan couldn't possibly be that crazy. No, it's not entirely impossible. But he didn't have much time to think about these issues, because in addition to the wild puppets that had turned into kites and followed the wake of the dreamer, the number of strange boxes scattered throughout the universe increased as they got closer to the experimental star system. As the energy body approached, bang, 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 bang. One box after another unlocked on its own, and more wild puppets appeared. They were densely packed in front of us, their sheer number terrifying. Liu Karen's hands, which were piloting the spaceship, began to tremble. "Oh no, brother. There are too many of these things ahead. We can't avoid them. Even if we use space jump, we can't completely escape this huge planetary belt, and we might even crash directly into those desolate puppets and take them into the Dreamer spaceship." Sure enough, 3 figures of desolate puppets flew rapidly from a distance, like sharks sniffing out blood. Their physical structure is incomprehensible, yet they are able to fly at high speeds through space. Professor Leonardo da Vinci's eyes shone like light bulbs, filled with excitement and a yearning for science. These guys possess scientific miracles. If we can capture just one, we can unlock the ultimate secret of life. Zhang Yi took a deep breath and said coldly, "At a time like this, don't think about those trivial matters anymore. We'll talk about them later." Luo Qiao and Shen Feng also felt immense pressure. Although they are not afraid of these wild puppets, once the Dreamer is occupied, their race's ships will be even less able to withstand the wild puppets' attacks. At that time, will they be able to fly through the universe in their physical bodies? They're not at that level yet. What should we do? You decide, Chaos. Luo Qiao looked at Zhang Yi and said in a serious tone, "As a top-tier spatial ability user, you should have a way to lead us out of this crisis, right?" Zhang Yi took a deep breath, her mind racing, and then answered, "Right now, I only have one option, to bring you all into my shadow. If I act alone, I can evade pursuit." Without any hesitation, Luo Qiao said, "Great idea, let's do it." Shen Feng nodded as well. Zhang Yi wanted to roll her eyes. Nonsense. You guys watched the show from the shadows while I ran around all by myself. Of course I was happy to do it. Although I'm complaining, time is of the essence, so this is the best course of action. He gave a low shout. Mu Yan, activate Shadow Domain. Receive, Your Highness. Mu Yan, who is usually taciturn, responded to the command. Zhang Yi's shadow rapidly unfolded on the spaceship, eventually spreading throughout the entire spaceship. No one resisted being enveloped by the black shadow curtain. They were all drawn into Mu Yan's shadow space. Zhang Yi reached out and pressed on the enormous streamer. The dimensional gate, like a huge curtain, expanded outwards from his palm in all directions, forming a huge spatial entrance that encompassed the entire Dreamer. The origami, who were originally preparing to feast on the Dreamer like a giant chocolate cake, were suddenly dumbfounded. What about what I ate? In the vast and boundless starry sky, the enormous Dreamer completely disappeared, leaving only Zhang Yi floating alone in space. The puppets were stunned for only a moment before their eyes all locked onto Zhang Yi. His eyes blazed with a bloodthirsty desire and greed, regarding him as an immense and boundless energy. Dozens of wild puppets pounced on them in an instant. Zhang Yi was about to make a move, but then he changed his mind and immediately suppressed his actions. He knew that these monsters would adapt their attack methods. If you continue to bombard them with spatial energy, it will only gradually make them restrain their own power. He absolutely cannot tolerate this situation. The safest course of action right now is to evacuate this star system first, and then make further plans. Chapter 2865 Adaptive Evolution. In the distance, roars and curses erupted from the fleet of warships of the Allied forces of 10,000 races. The constant explosions of fire in the starry sky signify that all races are plunged into calamity. This crisis is far more terrifying than anyone anticipated. With the 6 super races no longer leading the way and facing the monsters left behind by the Star Clan, the weaknesses of many races were fully exposed. Zhang Yi felt no pity whatsoever. All of this was part of his calculations. Once you step into this place, you must rely on your own abilities. If they die at the hands of the wild puppet, it will only be a good thing for the 6 generations. Whoosh! Zhang Yi activated the Boundless Realm and sped straight toward the nearest star. That massive, shattered metallic planet is the perfect hiding place and foothold for this moment. Boss, are you really going to run to that planet? Fatty Sue's voice rang out. Why do I have a feeling that the wild puppets are all released from there? You're right, Zhang Yi replied calmly. But have you considered something? Huh? What is it? Since the wild puppets originated from this metallic planet, there might be mechanisms on it to control them. Zhang Yi thought to himself. They also have the technology to create these monsters. If he could possess this power when resolving a crisis, he would be more than willing to ask for it. Of course, these words could only be spoken to himself. He could not let Luo Qiao Shunfeng know. Even with allies, you still need to be wary of core interests. A distance of hundreds of thousands of kilometers is not something that can be covered in an instant. During Zhang Yi's flight, he attracted a large number of wild puppets that frantically pursued him. Fortunately, they haven't evolved any methods to counter those with spatial abilities, so they can only fly through the universe in the most primitive way. This gave Zhang Yi ample time to gradually widen the gap. A thought flashed through his mind and formed instantly. During his escape, he seized the opportunity, activated the Boundless Realm, and pulled a wild puppet directly in front of him. The puppet was stunned and was about to make a move when Zhang Yi raised his hand and pressed it into its body. The Taishu bathrobe is the passage connecting to the netherworld. This wild puppet was newly born and had not yet undergone adaptive evolution. It was a primitive individual and was immediately imprisoned in the netherworld cage. After capturing a wild golem, Zhang Yi continued his escape, each leap covering 5,000 meters. He ran for his life, and the wild puppet couldn't get close at all, being left further and further behind. As more and more allied troops arrived from the rear, Huang Kuei immediately abandoned Zhang Yi, who was alone, and instead rushed towards the massive crowd. More than an hour later, Zhang Yi finally landed on a broken planet. This is the debris of a metal planet that was blown up, forming a massive planetary belt around the main body. Upon landing, he directly penetrated the interior of the star, ensuring that he remained undetected. Only after confirming that it was completely safe did he stop and begin to study the wild puppet. Luo Qiao, Shunfeng, help me control the dong, Zhang Yi said to the two black knights in the shadow space. Don't worry, even if the ability of the doe is strange, suppressing it for now is not a problem, Luo Qiao said calmly. Zhang Yi opened the gate to the netherworld and released the wild puppet. The monster, trapped in the netherworld with nowhere to go, stumbled around frantically like a headless fly. After observing for a while, Zhang Yi discovered that the netherworld had not developed any resistance. This discovery brought a slight smile to his lips. Thankfully, the Star Clan wasn't that powerful. The netherworld and the mortal world are completely different worlds. All supernatural substances in the mortal world are suppressed by the netherworld. Therefore, nothing can be absorbed in the netherworld, he said softly. He then took the wild puppet out of the netherworld and threw it into the shadow space. As soon as the ugly monster appeared, a huge crab claw clamped down on the neck of the creature, pinning it to the ground. The monster struggled desperately, but how could its strength possibly overcome the enhanced Black Knight? This thing will continue to evolve during battle. As long as you control the intensity of your attacks, you can limit the speed of its evolution. Xuanfeng's voice was cold. Although he spoke little, his mind was exceptionally clear. Luo Qiao stood with his hands behind his back, 9 giant spirit fish swimming slowly beside him. How exactly should we study this thing? Lu Ran and Professor Da Vinci walked over quickly. I suggest slicing it, Lu Ran said seriously. Professor Leonardo da Vinci, holding the diaphragm, said solemnly, let's first analyze the diaphragm slices to see its cellular structure. The two acted immediately. The shadow space was fully equipped and guarded by 2 black knights, so there was no danger. Lu Ran picked up the sharpest plasma laser cutting knife in the laboratory and began cutting from the wild puppet's arm. That laser that could easily cut through a drill left not even a trace as it grazed the tip of the wild puppet's finger. Lu Ran couldn't help but exclaim in amazement. This creature is capable of crushing the dreamer. Its physical strength is beyond imagination. I'll do it, Shunfeng said calmly. He raised the crab claw and gently sliced one of the wild puppet's fingers. Snap! Half a finger fell to the ground. The wild puppet seemed oblivious to pain, struggling wildly, its eyes filled only with killing intent and bloodlust. Even the severed finger that had fallen to the ground was twitching and twisting wildly. Professor Da Vinci immediately used a robotic arm to pick it up, put it into a storage container, and then studied it under a microscope. The process took some time. Zhang Yi dared not make any rash moves and remained hidden inside the star, occasionally contacting the Allied forces via the communication channel. Even now, the Allied forces are still helpless against the wild puppet. Some formed an alliance to fight back, while others jumped away to escape, each employing their own methods. No one can truly kill a wild puppet. Soon, Professor Leonardo da Vinci's exclamation came. Incredible. Zhang Yi's eyes narrowed. Well, Professor, have you found out why the do-killable is so powerful? Professor Leonardo da Vinci exclaimed excitedly. The toughness of the cells in the Dara is far beyond imagination. I have studied countless alien bodies in the Natural Science Association, and I have never seen such a structure. Each cell is an independent living entity, constantly wriggling and thirsting for energy. Even bombarding a single cell with rays at 100,000 degrees Celsius couldn't kill it. That's insane. If this species were to spread throughout the universe, it would bring annihilation to all life. Just how insane were the experiments the star race conducted? Zhang Yi found it increasingly familiar the more he listened. The idea that a temperature of 100,000 degrees Celsius can't kill a single cell sounds like a fantasy. This made everyone truly understand what a god-level civilization is. That is a being that truly transcends the mortal world and touches the fundamental rules of the universe. No wonder the creator Gahu wanted to destroy this sharpest sword with his own hands. If the star race were allowed to develop unchecked, they might create a destroyer even more terrifying than the Druk. Zhang Yi said, So, to completely annihilate the Do, you have to kill every single cell? I've seen this before. Many immortal beings and superhumans have experienced it. The entire universe follows the law of conservation of energy. There is no truly unkillable being. No, it's not that simple. Professor da Vinci's expression was grave, but his eyes gleamed with a mad light. These cells are enveloped in a special energy layer, the source of which I cannot discern. Moreover, when I irradiate them with an ultra-high temperature laser, they actually absorb the energy and divide. I suspect that non-lethal energy attacks will only make the monsters stronger. In other words, the monsters will grow stronger with each battle and can even evolve adaptively. Chapter 2866, Researching the Wild Puppet. Zhang Yi's gaze sharpened. We can't hide here forever. We must eventually break through the wild puppet's blockade and head to the depths of the star corridor. You continue your research. Since you're here, you should venture deeper into this metallic star. Hey, Chaos Brothers, don't leave us behind. Luo Qiao laughed. Shunfeng nodded in agreement. The two were not Zhang Yi's subordinates, but allies. As night-level geniuses, they have their own pride. Encountering such a formidable opponent only fuels their excitement and curiosity, fueling their desire to explore the secrets and seek the power of life evolution. Whatever you want, Zhang Yi has no right to restrain them, so of course he won't stop them. Suddenly, Professor Leonardo da Vinci exclaimed again. Oh no! After being exposed to high temperatures, the glass cells have started to move wildly. Crackling and popping, the severed finger frantically pounded against the vessel, desperately trying to escape. Even though it has detached from its original body, its activity level remains terrifyingly high. Leave it to us. Uncle Yu, clad in heavy demon armor, slowly stepped out. Among the crowd, in terms of strength alone, he was second only to the night-level powerhouse present. When the demon god armor unleashed its full power, it could even approach the level of the White Knight. Shunfeng Xian and Luo Qiao Xian, you have more important matters to attend to. You need not trouble yourselves with this small matter. As soon as he finished speaking, the black demonic armor automatically detached from his body and tightly enveloped the desolate puppet, suppressing it completely. The demon god armor is the most advanced technological creation of Zhang Yi's team, even more precious than the materials of the Dreamer. It was once the top-tier armor worn by Zhang Yi himself. The puppet was bound by the armor, struggling desperately, but it could no longer move an inch. Uncle Yu pointed to the suppressed wild puppet. It was able to be sealed in a metal box before, which means that it is difficult for it to undergo adaptive evolution unless it is attacked by external forces. By trapping it, it can achieve a similar effect. Shunfeng looked at Uncle Yu with admiration in his eyes and nodded, saying, You are very smart. The people there seem to be deep in thought. Faced with such a monster, the best method was not to attack, but to seal it. This might be a good way to deal with the wild puppet. Shunfeng and Luo Qiao emerged from the shadow space and approached Zhang Yi, their eyes gleaming with eager anticipation. Having broken free from the warship's hold, the Mongols were eager to have a proper battle with the Araku. Zhang Yi's idea is even simpler. All I want to know is why the wild puppet possesses such terrifying vitality. To understand the root cause, one must first find a way to kill them. It is not enough to know what is happening. We must also know why it is happening. Be careful, don't disturb too many wild puppets. If there are too many, you'll be overwhelmed, Zhang Yi warned. Of course. Luo Qiao and Shunfeng nodded in unison. Zhang Yi activated the boundless realm, bringing the two to the shattered metallic star. The three proceeded cautiously. In the universe, more and more, Donghui, meaning wild puppets, broke free from the box's seal and roamed around. They prioritize attacking the Allied forces' warships and aliens, and some are even devouring planets and metals in the universe. Come closer. Don't be too far apart, Zhang Yi said. First selected a target and activated the boundless realm to rush straight there. A wild golem was lying on another planet, frantically gnawing on a metal fragment hundreds of kilometers long, as if enjoying the most delicious cream cake. Click, click. The sound clearly reached Zhang Yi's ears. The wild puppet suddenly sensed Zhang Yi's aura, immediately dropped the metal, and pounced on him at lightning speed. This time, Zhang Yi didn't need to be distracted. Not daring to be careless in the slightest, he directly raised the Sword of Judgment and charged head-on into battle. Whoosh! The boundless realm forcibly pulled the desolate puppet in front of it. The Taishu fish and the time-space swamp unleashed their full power, instantly creating a distorted space swamp around them. Movement is greatly slowed down when anyone gets close to the object. After reaching the Black Knight level, he is extremely skilled in close combat. Faced with this monster that can adapt to supernatural abilities, I choose close-quarters combat to prevent the opponent from figuring out my abilities. The God-slaying armor is fully activated. The long sword was drawn in an instant, incredibly fast, unleashing 1,000 strikes at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the rampaging wild puppet was cleaved into countless fragments. He stared intently at every piece of meat, observing the entire process of its reconstruction. The battle footage was transmitted back to the shadow space in real time, where Yang Xinxin, Lu Ran, and others analyzed and studied it using equipment. The fragments scattered on the ground, but in less than a second, they began to wriggle and converge, without wasting a single drop of blood. It's as if every cell possesses a life, reassembling itself into a complete Araku. When it reappeared, Zhang Yi clearly sensed that its body had undergone a strange change. Dark silver lines appeared on the skin surface, and the bones and flesh became more resilient. To verify his guess, Zhang Yi swung his sword again. This time, when I shattered it, I clearly felt a resistance. It wasn't as easy as before. He then followed up with several more sword strikes, chopping the victim into mincemeat. Just 10 seconds later, all the bits of flesh, blood, and bones gathered together again, transforming into the intact Araku, which charged forward once more. On the third attack, its defense became even stronger. However, there was no change in speed or strength, nor were there any supernatural attacks. Is its evolution a response to the attack method of Dan? Zhang Yi frowned, first creating some distance, and then asked Lu Ran and Yang Xinxin, during these reunions, have you noticed any key moments? In front of Yang Xinxin and Lu Ran, the supercomputer was running at high speed. The materials are not enough, brother, try a few more times. On the other hand, Professor Leonardo da Vinci's team also made a new discovery. There is a kind of causal connection between each cell, which weaves a dense web. Zhang Yi asked in a deep voice, even if it's a network, there should be a terminal, right? The core that controls memory, instinct, and rules of action, like the human brain. Such a thing must exist. Or perhaps they are receiving signals from some distant master brain. The wisest person should see through appearances to the essence. Zhang Yi has fought countless strange creatures and supernatural beings. I never believed that there was water without roots in this world. We will continue the experiment. Zhang Yi whispered, use only physical attacks to make it react slowly. Watch carefully. To provide more samples, Zhang Yi continued to bombard the desolate puppet. After more than 10 rounds, he clearly felt that the force required to swing the sword was getting greater and greater. Fortunately, what he held in his hand was the sharpest divine weapon in the universe, the Eternal Judgment Sword of the Aihen clan. There is no weapon in the world more resilient or sharper than it. Even if the physical body of the wild puppet evolves to surpass that of the warship's core, it can still be easily cleaved in two by the... This situation cannot continue indefinitely. Zhang even had a premonition that after killing it thousands more times, its defense might actually be able to withstand its pure physical attacks. While Zhang Yi was experimenting with combat, Shunfeng and Luo Qiao each found a wild puppet and kept probing for weaknesses. Chapter 2867. The attack of the simulated Drucker Shunfeng was the simplest and most brutal, with terrifying light-speed punches repeatedly smashing the desolate puppet into a pulp. No matter what you do, the wild puppet can always fully recover. Locke's spirit fish attack has a special effect. After the first bite, the wild puppet's body was unharmed, but it remained in a daze for a long time. Luo Qiao thought he had grasped the key point and concluded that the wild puppet was only strong in physical body but weak in spirit. In less than 5 minutes, the wild puppet regained consciousness, and its body evolved resistance to attacks from spirits. When they tried again, the effect was far less than before. Strange? Luo Qiao frowned. His power can directly attack spirits, and his core is ethereal. Even the strongest creature will die if its soul is devoured. But why does this monster always manage to revive? Could it be that it has no spirit and is just an empty shell? That's even more illogical, because the energy it emits clearly indicates the presence of ether. The battle footage of the people was transmitted back in real time and analyzed by Yang Xinxin and Lu Karen. The elites of the Spirit Clan and the Abyss Clan cooperated fully. After working for more than 20 minutes, the massive amount of data finally led Yang Xinxin to a conclusion. She said to the others, "You all smash the wild puppet again, but remember, preserve the piece right in the middle of its sternum. Don't destroy it." The man didn't ask any questions and immediately did as instructed. Except for a small piece of meat in the center of the chest, the rest of the body was minced into a paste. Then, they witnessed all the bits of flesh frantically converging towards that small piece. "So that's where it was," Luo Qiao said in a low voice. "The weak point is in the center of the sternum?" "Wrong." Shunfeng spoke up. "I've attacked this spot no less than 100 times, yet it still manages to revive." "Why?" "Because at this point, there is something special hidden." Professor Leonardo da Vinci had completed his anatomical study. Under the microscope, he found a piece of meat the size of a grain of rice. Its activity is the weakest among all flesh and blood, yet its hardness is the highest. Its energy fluctuations are weak, but it hides an indescribable life force, which cannot be discovered without deliberate research. Unbreakable. Zhang Yi's lips curled up. "As long as we find the weakness, I don't believe there's anything in this world that can't be destroyed." He gripped the eternal sword of judgment tightly with both hands, aiming it at the chest of the newly resurrected wild puppet. Based on the data provided by Yang Xinxin, they precisely locked onto that core and suddenly thrust out with their sword. The terrifying torrent of dark swords transformed into extremely sharp spikes, piercing fiercely into that one point. A jet-black sword light pierced through the body of the desolate puppet and stretched for tens of kilometers in the starry sky. With this sword strike, Zhang Yi was confident that he could destroy almost everything known in the world. With a single sword strike, a huge hole was blasted into the body of the wild puppet. But the next second, Zhang Yi's pupils suddenly contracted. On the tip of the sword, the grain of flesh the size of a grain of rice was completely intact, without even the slightest tremor. What exactly is this thing? Seeing that the desolate puppet was about to reappear, Zhang Yi did not hesitate and used the formless realm to pull the core directly into the depths of the netherworld. After this action, The rapidly reconstructing flesh and blood of the wild puppet instantly became chaotic. They twisted and tangled blindly, yet could no longer take shape. Zhang Yi shouted at Shunfeng and Luo Qiao, "Take away the core from the center of their sternums, and they will never be able to revive." Upon hearing this, Shunfeng unleashed a massive crab claw strike that pierced through the body of the desolate puppet, trapping the core within its pincers. "Is this okay?" Luo Qiao followed suit, shattering his body, taking out the core, and examining it carefully with his fingertips. But the moment the two were watching, that tiny piece of flesh suddenly stretched out blood-red tentacles, which pierced into their flesh like tree roots. It spread wildly towards their blood vessels and bones, trying to absorb all their life energy. The two were terrified. Without hesitation, Luo Qiao cut off one of his own fingers. Shunfeng roared and slammed the crab claw hard onto the surface of the star. The violent tremors not only failed to blast away the core, but actually accelerated its erosion. Damn it! Shunfeng was extremely ruthless, directly shattering the front of the crab's claw, and retreated at lightning speed in terror. Immediately afterwards, the two watched helplessly as their remaining flesh and blood were completely devoured by that core. "What the hell is this thing? Don't make physical contact." Zhang Yi took a deep breath, and after using the Netherworld Imprisonment Core, it finally stopped moving. His suspicions were now completely confirmed. "I know what these things are." The group regrouped, and Zhang Yi said with a serious expression, "Don't stray too far from me from now on. Apart from me, your abilities will have little effect on attacking them. I suspect that most of the allied forces that pass through this star system this time will be wiped out." Luo Qiao and Shun Fengyuan did not take Huang Kuei seriously. They are the top geniuses of their respective races. These mass-produced monsters are nothing more than grunts in their eyes. How could they possibly threaten their lives? But only after truly experiencing a bitter battle did I realize that even if I could crush the wild puppet into mincemeat, they could be infinitely heavy, like maggots clinging to bones, chilling my heart. Lord Chaos, tell us, what exactly is this? Zhang Yi took a deep breath. This is a flesh and blood core modeled after the Drucker people. Their eyes narrowed sharply, and they instantly became extremely alert. The Druckers are the nightmare of the entire universe. They devoured and wiped out thousands of races. Once they revive, in this world, more than 10% of the lives will be devoured. You mean, the Star Clan is imitating the Druckians to create this ultimate life form? The strength of the Druckers is not due to the terror of the heavens.
Alright, that's it for today's chapter. Tell me in the comments which part you enjoyed the most. If you love manga style stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe the Post-apocalyptic Manga. See you in the next chapter with more surprises. Thank you.